Following deposition of Gregory Costabile, Esquire, is being taken on July 24, 2006, at 65 East State Street, Columbus, Ohio. In the case of Gregory Costabile, Esquire v. Howard, Son & Sheen, et al. This deposition is being taken on behalf of the defendant. The court reporter is Tracy Schell. This deposition is being recorded on half-inch DV videotape by Spectrum Reporting, LLC, Columbus, Ohio, by videographer Jeremy Deneen. We are on the record at 9:50. Would counsel please announce their presence?
Charles Saxby, counsel for defendants in this case. Respondents.
Gregory Costabile, the complainant and also an attorney of record.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Costabile.
Morning.
Would you please state your name and current residential address for the record, please?
I will, and just for record purposes, though, I will state that I do object to the use of the video equipment pursuant to Ohio Civil Rule 30b-3, as well as the Rules of Superintendents 11 and 13 for courts in the state of Ohio. There's a requirement that if video equipment is to be used or any other means besides stenographic means for a deposition, that notice must be given, and in this case it was not. The summons that I received was for a deposition to be taken place without the video, so we are proceeding with it, but it is under my continuing objection. Other than that, you asked for my address.
Okay. Residential address.
6615 Ridgeberry Boulevard, Mayfield Heights, Ohio, 44124.
And what's your date of birth?
10/21/66.
And this deposition is a ducus tecum that had been noticed by subpoena, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were served with a copy of the subpoena?
Yep, it was received in my home, so resident service.
And it was originally scheduled for a date other than today?
That's true.
And by agreement, we voluntarily rescheduled?
True.
And in correspondence last week from me, you received notice that we were intending to take this deposition by videotape as well as stenographically.
Actually not true. I was not in my office on Friday when I believe the facsimile transmission came across, so I didn't receive it until actually Sunday night.
So Friday, so it was not until Sunday night, last night,
Correct.
that you discovered this would be by videotape?
That's accurate.
Okay. Would you state what your current employment is?
I am the mayor of the city of Mayfield Heights, and I am also attorney and principal in the law firm of Phillips, Millie & Costabile.
And how long have you been mayor of Mayfield Heights?
Since January of this year.
And is that a full-time position?
Always an interesting question. The pay and benefits are part-time, but the work is full-time.
Does that mean you no longer practice law?
No, I'm actually working 2 full-time jobs.
So you're giving 200%.
You know, I never think you can go above 100, but we'll say 100% at both.
And prior to your service as mayor, what other political or public offices have you held?
I was first elected to Mayfield Heights City Council in 1999, took office in 2000, and was re-elected 4 years later. And during that period, was elected by my council peers as council president, beginning, I believe, January of 2002.
And you had no prior experience in holding public office?
No.
Any prior political activity?
No.
Is the office of mayor a nonpartisan position?
Yes.
You run as nonpartisan.
Correct.
And tell me, Mr. Costabile, what your educational background is.
Graduate of Mayfield High School, graduate of Bowling Green State University, and graduate of Cleveland Marshall College of Law.
And when did you graduate from Cleveland Marshall?
In '92.
And have you been with your current firm since 19?
No, I was working with for a law firm at the time, was Seeley, Savage, and Awesome. Then I was working with a sole practitioner and have been with my current firm since, I believe, October of '95.
And how many attorneys in your current firm?
There are 2 other partners besides myself and a total of 8 lawyers presently.
And how long have you been a partner?
Let's see. I think this is my 3rd year.
And what is your principal area of practice?
Family law.
You do any other areas of practice?
Well, I'm a board certified specialist in family relations law. I'll also practice general civil litigation, which includes a variety of topics, and also municipal law.
And your firm, does it have any particular specialization, or is it a general practice?
It's a general practice firm, but my one partner is a board certified specialist in elder law, and my other partner is a board certified specialist in civil litigation.
You are not represented by separate counsel here today, are you?
That's true.
And have you consulted with legal counsel at all throughout this particular case?
I've spoken with a couple of attorneys, but have not retained anybody to this point.
In preparing to respond to the subpoena and for this deposition today, what did you do?
Reviewed my personal files.
And what was contained in your personal files?
Just the documents that were responsive to the subpoena that I provided you this morning.
And those documents you have provided me today, I am marking as Exhibit A. Would you please review those documents and confirm those were all of the documents you've produced today in response to the subpoena?
Appears accurate.
And those documents contain an offer to purchase real estate located at 615 Ridgeberry, a March 22nd, 2004 correspondence from Matthew Rosner at Jaleen Development, and two closing statements related to real estate at Ridgeberry Boulevard, and another related to property at Hawthorne Road, Mayfield Heights, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were there any other documents in your possession or control which were responsive to the subpoena, which specifically asked for all documents related to the 6615 Ridgeberry Boulevard address?
The only other documents would have been documents that you had previously received in your subpoena on Matt Rosner. Once you had advised me that you received documents, I contacted his lawyer and asked him to supply me with copies as I'm a party, and he did so. And I noticed that some documents that were responsive to the subpoena upon me you had already retained, so I didn't bring duplicate documents.
Were you also responsible for reviewing documents that were in the possession of your law firm, which would have been responsive to the subpoena?
You could say I was involved. The reason I say that, there were no documents, so there was nothing that was actually reviewed. As you're aware, an affidavit was provided to you from our records custodian, again confirming that there were no documents held by the law firm responsive to the subpoena issued upon it.
The documents you've produced today relate to two separate real estate transactions in Mayfield Heights, Ohio, don't they?
Yes.
The first is the sale of your property on Hawthorne Road, looks like around January 16th, 2004.
Correct.
And was that a former residence?
Yes, it was.
And the other settlement statement in Exhibit A relates to your purchase of the residence at 6615 Ridgeberry from David and Claudia Slivka. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you have no other documents other than what has been produced and what may have also been produced by Mr. Rossner.
That's correct.
In the Slivka transaction, which occurred in November of 2003 or in the fall of 2003, there were no other documents other than this closing statement and official and the documents provided related to that transfer, the documents provided by Rossner.
If there were other documents, it would have been retained by my real estate agent at the time, Jeanette Galinsky. I believe she was with Smythe Kramer, which I think has changed the name since then.
Did you contact your agent and request any documents?
It's my understanding that she has moved out of the state.
Were the Slivkas represented by a real estate agent when they sold their home?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Do you know who that was?
I do not recall the name.
Were they represented by legal counsel?
Not throughout the process, but at one point a lawyer did call me and claimed he was representing them.
And who was that?
I didn't keep a record of it, and I don't recall his name.
And was that call before or after the transaction?
By transaction, what are you referring to?
The purchase of the Slivka property in
It
November.
was after the purchase agreement was signed and immediately before the actual closing date.
And what did this attorney say to you he represented Slivka?
He wanted to make an argument about a swing set that was on the property. Specifically, the purchase agreement that you have a copy in front of you did not reference anything that this, I don't even want to call it just a swing set. It actually has a fort with it. It's one of those wooden apparatus that is fairly more involved. Had been on the property for some time. There was nothing listed in this agreement. As you see, some items were excluded, some fixtures were excluded, and the only thing that was listed was a pool. At the time, my children were, I think, 3 and 1, and it was a nice other added benefit to the property to have that. And there was an argument he was making that she being Claudia and or David had issues of whether that should be in there or not. It was two lawyers talking. I believe the agreement was pretty straightforward, that if it was to be excluded, it would have been listed. He agreed with me, and that was the end of that issue.
And this was a place that was located outside the structure in the backyard?
It was in the backyard and kind of anchored down, if you will, to the ground so that it stays safe so it doesn't move.
Was it your position that it was a fixture that ran with the real estate?
Yes.
And what was the attorney's position, that it was not?
Initially, it was not, that it was not, and then by the end of our conversation, and after we went through the purchase agreement, he agreed with my position and advised his client accordingly, or at least said he would. I don't know what he specifically said to them.
As part of Exhibit A is the offer to purchase real estate and acceptance. What provision of this document did you rely upon which led you to believe that you could claim the play swing set in the backyard as part of the transaction?
On the front page under subsection C has excluded fixtures, and the only thing listed is a pool. On top of that, it was my discussions with my real estate agent and her advising me that indeed, in her experience, if anything such as this were to be excluded, it would have been listed in this agreement. It had never come up in any discussions that she had had with the Slivka's real estate agent, that they had a desire to retain it. And she had advised me that she had advised them that this was obviously something that was important to us, or at least because of the age of our children. But in her experience, these types of apparatus, if they are to be excluded, they would be listed under this subsection C, and it was not.
Was this an issue that deal breaker
No.
on this transaction?
No.
Did you ever refuse to complete the transaction or to close the transaction if you did not get the swing set?
No.
Did you ultimately succeed in convincing the Slivkas that you were to get the play set?
I think, I don't know that I had anything to do with it. I had never spoken to either of them throughout this whole proceeding. I don't even know what David looks like. The only time I ever saw Claudia was when she was on the property when we were to have a walkthrough or to take a look at it for some issues we wanted to see. She happened to be coming as we were leaving. She said hello, I said hello, and that was the extent of it. So to answer your question, it would have been nothing that I had said. Probably more, my estimation would be what her lawyer explained to her and or her agent.
And you don't recall the name of that lawyer?
No, I do not.
Were you represented by legal counsel at any time during this purchase of the Ridgeberry Boulevard property?
No.
How about at the closing?
No.
When you purchased the property, did you borrow money to purchase it?
Yes.
And did you enter into mortgage agreements?
Yes.
And do you have copies of the mortgage agreement that you entered into?
I do not.
Do you know who has those records?
I would imagine it would be with HMAC, I believe, was the entity that we went through.
And you don't retain...
And I may have a copy. I didn't believe that there was anything in the subpoena that required that, so I did not bring it.
In the race for mayor in 2005, when did that campaign begin?
I believe I announced that I would be running in December of '04, or
And-
somewhere about that time.
December of '04?
Correct.
And who else ran in that election?
The respondent, Howard Sonestein, ran, Gino Manfredi, a Marty Kebbel, and a Jim Teresi. There's 5 of us.
Sonnenstein, Manfredi were both members of the city council at the time.
Yes.
How about Mr. Teresi?
He is a former member, and his wife was currently on council at the time.
And tell me what was the outcome of the November election?
I garnered the most votes. There was a really close amount of votes between Sonestein and Manfredi, and then ultimately Sonestein had the second amount. But in the city of Mayfield Heights, the winner, if you will, must have 50% of all votes cast in that election. I believe I had about between 40 and 42%. So as it was not the 50% level, there was a runoff election required in December.
And who was in the runoff in December?
Myself and the respondent.
And had you had any prior relationship with Mr. Sonnenstein?
In what regard?
Political, social, governmental?
Just being members of council.
And had you been, would you describe your relationship as council members as a positive one, or as one where you were adversaries?
No, I think I'd characterize it as just being council members. Nothing more, nothing less.
How about Donna Finney? How long have you known Donna Finney, and what relationships have you had with her?
My only way of knowing her would be when she was elected to council. And she's a council member now, and I sit as mayor.
She was first elected to council in 2005?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, took office in '06, right?
Previous to that, she was a member of the Mayfield Heights School Board?
Yes,
Were you aware of that?
I was.
Do you know how long she'd been on the school board?
I do not.
Have you ever encountered anyone in 2005 that Miss Finney?
No.
Do you believe it was fairly well known in Mayfield Heights that she was a member of the school board?
No, I wouldn't say it was well known.
What were the issues in the mayor's race in 2005?
It's tough to say, being that it's a municipal election. It doesn't get, obviously quite the media or the press that you would actually itemize issues. It's each candidate puts forward their own platform, and whichever platform the voters feel will help them the best is who they ultimately vote for.
What was your platform?
One, to be able to give back to a community I care very deeply about. Lived in a community nearly my entire life. I felt as a lawyer and certified mediator, I would be able to help resolve conflicts in a appropriate, expedient, cost-effective manner. And with my experience on council, as well as being council president, that I would be able to bring benefits to the community.
Give you what's been marked as Exhibit B. Can you?
It's one of the pieces of campaign literature that was out during the campaign.
And On the first page, Exhibit B, the first line of the quotation, first two lines, played a pivotal role in updating the master plan. You see that? Mm-hmm. Was that your role in updating the master plan? Was that one of the cornerstone issues in your race?
It was more in bringing the master plan, or the excuse me, the idea to the city of Mayfield Heights. The last master plan the city had was in 1972. When I first came on to council in 2000, I brought it to the attention of the then council president, Chuck Pona, as well as the then mayor, Peg Egensberger, that I thought it was a good idea to update a plan. I think a city ought to have one. Egensberger really didn't have much interest in it. She didn't think it would be helpful. The council president, Pona, did think that it was a good idea, and we set up a subcommittee maybe in 2001, I want to say, to just kind of review and maybe help educate other council members as to why our master plan is a good idea. So when I look and state in here, played a pivotal role, I don't believe if I brought the idea to the attention of the city that we would have one.
On the second page of Exhibit B, this campaign literature under governmental experience, the third star cites you as chairman and founder of the city master plan. Do you see that?
I do.
And what did you mean by describing yourself as the founder of the city master plan?
Same explanation as I just gave, that if I did not bring the idea to city council, and I don't recall the year exactly, it might have been 2002. I think Chuck Pona was still the president of city council at the time. Members of council still didn't quite understand what a master plan was, so we had a educational session, I guess, if you will, and law directors from some area municipalities that had more experience in it came in. The Cuyahoga County Planning Commission deputy director, I believe, who no longer is in that post, also came to help educate council. So when I say founder, my interpretation was, or the intent was, is that if I had not brought the idea to the city, we would not have one.
Whom did you consult with prior to proposing the development of a master plan?
It initially started with the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission, the deputy director. There's a number of different entities that get involved to assist a city to put together a master plan. The Cuyahoga County Planning Commission will do it. There's some private entities that'll do it. And what we ultimately did in the city is we basically put it out to bid and see who would come in to be the authors of this plan, who would come in to put everything together, do all the work, and guide the city through it. And ultimately the firm of D.B. Hart was chosen by City Council, and they took over from there.
The plan was developed by a committee of citizens and public officials, however, wasn't it? And essentially the Hart Group incorporated the recommendations and decisions of this